Greetings, fellow armchair midgets. I'm Pickle Rick.
And I'm, I guess, Jacob Wild too. I guess.
No, you're also Pickle Rick.
I'm Pickle Rick.
I'm Pickle Rick. Oh, God. Okay, folks, rest assured, we're not going to be doing the Pickle Rick thing the whole podcast. We just wanted to get it out of our systems. Anyways, welcome, everyone, to Tiki's Universe, the show where we recap, respond, and react to all things animated programming, including Star vs. Forces of Evil, Rick and Morty, coming very soon, DuckTales. It's like a week away, Jacob. And I have one word to say to that. Woohoo! Let's see. DuckTales, Welcome to the Wayne. All kinds of stuff. But we are here to talk about perhaps the most hyped up episode of Rick and Morty of season 3. Pickle Mother Effin' Rick. Oh my God.
Definitely a strange one. Even for this show.
Jacob, I will say this episode did not disappoint. Here's the thing. I don't know how many times you've gotten around to watching the episode. I've seen it 4 times, and I think it's very, very rewatchable.
I only watched it once. But yeah, I would have to agree.
Okay, I will admit the first thing I took away from it on my first viewing was the shock value to it, right?
Oh yeah, this episode definitely nailed that aspect.
So let's just get right into it. I mean, you know, the episode starts, we get the usual kind of like, you know, the usual Justin Roiland, you know, like just improvising with himself, you know, like, I'm Pickle Rick. Hey, Morty, I turned myself into a pickle. Why would you do that, Rick? I don't know why anyone would do that.
Because basically his only reason is because I can.
Why can anyone do anything, Morty? Because they can. Except I'm the only person in the world who can do this because I'm Pickle Rick. I mean, what more do you want from me, Morty? I'm a pickle. Okay.
Yes.
And then Jacob, I love how when Beth comes in, he changes his tone, but he's still basically saying the same thing.
Turn myself into a pickle.
It's like, oh geez, honey, I turned myself into a pickle. I mean, I'm a pickle now.
Yeah, it just happened to be on the day when they had family therapy.
Jeez, I don't know what to say, Beth. I mean, jeez, I feel so bad, but I'm a pickle. He just keeps hammering the pickle thing in. You know, he doesn't want them to forget that.
It's like, yes, we get it. It's like it doesn't even face her. It's just like, yep, my dad's a pickle.
Right.
It's like
Beth is not the first. Beth is not the first person that this. She's not the last person that is going to be completely 100% unfazed by Pickle Rick. Let's just say that much.
It's like she's probably thinking, my dad's done Stranger Things,
which is probably true.
I've seen him do stranger things than turn himself into a pickle. So,
all right. So
I mean, this is Rick we're talking about.
So Jacob, let's enough tap dancing around this thing. Let's get into the carnage. Just the carnage, Jacob. Oh, that sewer scene. That sewer scene, man. Oh God.
Beyond fucked up.
The first time I saw it, I legitimately thought I was gonna throw up. I mean, oh God.
I mean, the way they ushered it in, him killing a cockroach and licking its brain to make it move.
Jacob, I actually think that once Rick gets into kind of like the Iron Man like rat suit, it becomes less disgusting. But that initial cockroach get up, like I don't know, Jacob. I have a thing with insects with, you know, like multiple arms and whatnot, and and dead insects, and just using the brain stems to move them around. Just God. Even thinking about it. But the brilliant thing about it, Jacob, is that it scientifically makes sense.
I mean, it's a bit of an ass pull, but for this show, it works.
I mean, yeah, I don't.
Don't get me wrong. It it is like based on true scientific fact.
I'm just saying, like, by this show's illogical logic, this is pretty damn logical. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, don't get me wrong. That's kind of what I was going with.
Sure.
I mean, like I said, in this show's logic, it makes total sense.
So yeah, just the getup with the with all the cockroaches like strapped to his body. Ooh, just seeing that animated and like him licking the brain stems.
And don't get me, yeah, that part was disgusting, but admittedly, the part with the rats was pretty damn awesome.
That's what I'm getting at, Jacob. The part with the rats, it is very visceral and violent and gory, but it's awesome at the same time. You know, it's just total like kick-ass, like, go Pickle Rick, yeah!
He definitely earns the battle cry. He definitely earns that battle cry if he comes out of the toilet.
Also, Jacob, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the inspiration for Pickle Rick going into the sewer. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so basically the most effed up scene in Rick and Morty, arguably, was inspired by Fievel Goes West.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Because in Fievel Goes West, that's how they end up. You know, that they get washed out in the sewer, and there's this whole scene where they're like in the, I think they're like in a, I don't know, in some sort of makeshift boat going down a sewer or something.
Actually, I did watch that behind the scenes thing, and they actually did mention that. I remember.
Yep. So it's just like, oh, that's great. That's great. You know, Fievel Goes West equals, dead cockroach brain stems and a rat massacre. Just how lovely. How lovely.
Way to go, Don Bluth, who inspired this.
Oh man. I think Don Bluth in his own way would be very, very happy with this episode. Also, not to mention it switches from Fievel Goes West to like The Secret of Nim, right? With the rats.
Yeah, no way. Never mind. Yeah, I was gonna say something stupid.
All right. So why don't we touch on the therapy subplot that's in the episode before we get into the second act of the Pickle Rick story?
Yeah, the therapy part was actually pretty interesting in a way.
I've heard mixed things about the therapy session, but Jacob, I gotta say, I really like this subplot. I mean, it's not, it's not outlandish or anything like that. It's stuck in one room, but there's a lot of laughs that come out of it for me, and especially as someone who's had to deal with therapists like this. Jacob, let's just quick PSA on what makes a good therapist for me. A good therapist is exactly the kind of therapist that doesn't dissect every single word that you're trying to say and every single because Jacob, I had so many times in therapy where they'd be like, how was your week? And I'd be like, yeah, my week was okay. But why was it okay? Why wasn't it good? You said it was just okay. We have to get to the deeper meaning of that. And the therapists that I actually like are like, okay, just talk to me. Let's have a conversation. Let's go.
The therapist I go to is like the final one, like you said, like the one that gets to the root of the problem immediately.
I'm saying those are the good therapists. Anyways, the more you know, folks.
This therapist. This show kind of paints as all therapists like that, but
well, there is one thing I want to bring up with Pickle Rick. I mean, this is kind of jumping ahead, but when Pickle Rick actually enters the therapy session and he kind of goes off about therapy, and he says one thing, Jacob, that I can't argue with, that it's kind of the reason why I use therapy. And it's like, it helps a lot of people, panic and stop from losing control or something like that, something to that extent.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that, like, while Pickle Rick does have this big diatribe about why therapy is bad, there is a kernel of truth, which is a very helpful bit of, the main reason I do use therapy, because it does help me, stop panicking in bad situations. So anyways, we don't need to talk about our personal therapy experiences anymore. I'm just, so let's, yeah.
And mainly this episode, brought up, this is, and again, this family is screwed up.
So let's give credit where credit is due to the great Susan Sarandon, who voices the therapist, Dr. Wong. She was fantastic.
Oh yeah, I noticed her name in there.
Oh man, she was so good. Just a very dry delivery on her part, but especially when she gets to interacting with Pickle Rick, it's like, when she's saying lines like, Rick, you're covered in rat feces, and I don't know why you choose to live this way. It's like that's the funny part of this therapy session, Jacob, is the fact that she's like able to, as soon as Pickle Rick walks in with his like rat getup and everything, she doesn't give a bat an eye. She's just like, you must be Rick. I've heard a lot about you today.
Doesn't surprise her in the slightest.
And then she's just able to and that's what I really do respect about this episode and its message of therapy, is that she does kind of deconstruct Rick. You know what I mean? Like, she's like, look, I'm not going to sit here, yeah, I'm sure you'd be bored stiff by therapy because you're not the kind of man who would benefit therapy, but blah, 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 blah. She has a whole monologue, but I just love the fact that she's just like so casual about this pickle thing. You know what I mean? She's just like,
yeah. Yep, that she's like, she said like doesn't surprise her in the slightest, and she does bring up some truths about Rick.
Yeah, some good truths. Mostly the fact that he's like just trying to do anything to hide from his family, and like I love the analogy she uses about like, like things being work. It's like like when I brush my teeth or comb my hair, that's work. There's no adventure to it. It's work. It's upkeep. And Rick, your whole life seems to be an adventure, and you don't want to put in the work.
Yeah, it's like, and that came at the cost of him avoiding his entire family.
Okay, so let's see. What do we think of Summer and Morty in this episode? Because they don't really have a ton to do, but they have some. Morty especially has a couple funny one-liners.
It's an album of people eating poop.
I don't know. Just Justin Roiland's delivery when they're all like kind of doing their little confessions, and Morty's just like, I feel sad about peeing. I should have peed in class. I should have peed on the toilet. It's like, yeah, Morty. Yeah, you tell him, Morty.
It's so hard to believe that both Rick and Morty are voiced by the same.
I know.
I mean, I've heard Justin Roiland's voice before, and it worked with Morty, but like he also does Rick.
I know, Rick is crazy. Yeah. For the longest time, this is going to sound stupid, but for the longest time, I actually thought Dan Harmon did Rick.
Like I said, I don't know. I don't know if Dan Harmon does any voices on this show.
I don't think he does. That's the thing. He's just a writer, but I think he's also a stand-up comedian, so that's kind of why I assumed he would voice Rick. But yeah, obviously that's not true.
Surprised me if he's done background voices in the past for this show. I mean, he's co-creator of this thing, so he has quite a hand in it. So
yeah, for sure. I'm sure he's done background voices. Okay, so let's circle back around, Jacob. Let's talk about Jaguar, voiced by the great Danny Trejo.
He was quite interesting.
Oh man, I'm really excited to see where this character goes in the future. For any Star vs. Evil fans, this guy totally reminds me of Buff Frog.
He kind of does,
right?
Although I wouldn't be, although knowing this show, I wouldn't be surprised if Jaguar doesn't come back.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think this season is aiming to have more continuity than the last two seasons, and they already set up Jaguar to, to at least help Rick and Morty out from time to. I've got some theories about Jaguar. I've got some theories about him. I think that Jacob, one of the things let's just get into some speculation here. I think one of the things that I think this season's building to is an inevitable encounter between Rick and Bird Person.
Bird Person, but didn't Bird Person die in the wedding?
Yeah. But remember, you didn't see the post credits, did you?
I'd watched it. I didn't remember the. credits.
Jacob, my friend, you're slacking here. There's a post credits where Bird Person is revealed to be alive, and he's like a mecha bird person. So he's kind of like a Darth Vader style, like, you know, like half bird person, half cyborg.
I think the version I watched skipped that.
Well, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry to throw you into that. But yeah, Bird Person's alive, and he's probably going to fight Rick. And that's where I think Jaguar is going to come into play. I think Jaguar is going to lend a hand and kill Bird Person for Rick because Rick doesn't want to have to kill Bird Person. There's my whole theory about Jaguar. Anyways, yeah, the character himself was really fun.
I mean it makes sense. That theory makes sense, but yeah, I do agree. Even though, where exactly were they?
Where exactly were who?
Were Pickle, Jaguar, Rick, and Jaguar.
In some weird, like, experimental prison thing. I don't know. Basically, it's supposed to be every 90s action movie ever. That's kind of like what the writers said it was. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, think of the Die Hard building or any other, like, generic action movie building. You know what I mean?
But it was like all completely said in a different, it's like they're speaking a different language, like a totally different country or something. And that's what they pass it off as a little bit. Wow. In the time frame, it looks like it takes place in the United States.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it takes place like maybe a few blocks away from Rick and Morty's, you know, from their house, because he goes into the sewer and he does all the stuff with the rats. But, you know, think about it, like he couldn't really get that far with just the cockroaches. You know, he's probably like a block or so down the street. I
know, but I was wondering, like, who the heck were these people anyway?
Maybe we'll see more of them. Who knows? Who knows? But one of the things, what?
Well, they all got killed, so it's kind of hard to.
Actually, yeah, that's true. When I said maybe we'll see more of them, I kind of meant like maybe we'll explore that location again. I didn't necessarily mean like maybe we'll see more of the people.
They were all killed by Selenia.
And you know, some pretty gruesome deaths as well. Like everyone's talking about the sewer scene, but like the one scene where Pickle Rick blasts the holes in all the guys' faces, and their faces are just oh god, that is, you know, that's pretty brutal in its own right.
Yeah, that was visceral.
One of the things I loved about this second act of the episode is how Pickle Rick was just tormenting them the whole time, and he eventually just turned it into like, you know, like, no, I asked you to let me out, and now I'm coming for you. You know, it's like he don't give a shit. Like he knows he can take these guys down.
It's like he didn't really want anything to do with it until they attacked him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like it's like he talked about like the cliche, like how Jaguar's a living cliche, but he kind of turned into a lot of cliches himself while he was doing that.
Well, yeah, and Jacob, there's definitely shots, like I don't know them all, but there's definitely shots that are straight out of, you know, like lifted out of 90s action movies. You know,
that's most likely the joke they were going for. Like he's talking about the cliches while he was acting out the cliches.
Sure. Anyways, I guess you want to loop back around to anything with the therapy. I think we're kind of wrapping up here.
Yeah, I think we pretty much talked about everything with the therapy, other than that Beth like admires her father, even though all the trouble he's caused.
Yeah, and I guess let's just talk about the ending, which has a very interesting Easter egg nestled in it. So the ending is when they're all in the car. I love the animation of Pickle Rick going back into regular Rick, just with all the visceral detail that you would imagine a transformation like that.
The thing is, he must have transformed. The thing about it, he turned to Pickle while he was naked too, so he transformed back that way.
Right.
I mean, it's just kind of weird detail.
So I really like the note the episode ends on, where it's like we really do get a sense that Beth and Rick are growing closer, and Rick at least wants to maintain some level of commitment to, you know, being her father and, you know, like settling down. And I don't know, you know, it's just a nice kind of end note, except for the obvious, like Summer and Morty are being terribly neglected.
Yeah. He's like, I'm gonna start focusing on my daughter at the expense of my grandchildren.
So the one really funny line that Summer had this episode, let's not pass it up, is she's just like, all I want to do is get high without people just thinking it's because of my messed up family. It's like, oh, Summer, life goals.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's why she was huffing. That's why she was huffing pottery enamel.
I mean, Summer huffed a pottery enamel. Are we even going to talk about that? Okay. Anyways. So, the one big Easter egg I want to point out, Jacob, is the Shoney's. Whoa!
That's a callback, isn't it? Like an earlier episode.
It's a callback, but it has me wondering, Jacob. It has me wondering. It could be nothing. It could just be a clever, like, hey, remember from the first episode? The thing that makes me skeptical, though, Jacob, and the thing that kind of made it feel out of place from the get-go when I saw it the first time before even getting into any of the Easter egg videos or anything is Beth and Rick are specifically going for a place to drink, right? And Shoney's, as established in the Rick Shank Redemption, is a very family-friendly establishment. I mean, they might have like beer, but it seems like Beth and Rick really wanted to go to a bar. You know what I mean?
So what do you think it means?
I think the writers are kind of playing around with us because they know that there's a certain percentage of the fan base that thinks Rick is still at the Shoney's from Rick Shank Redemption. I don't think that's the case. I just want to make that clear. I don't think Rick is in the Shoney's. I just think it's the writers kind of like, but maybe. So.
Well, possibly.
And it was also kind of odd that Beth brought up the Shoney's too.
I don't remember that far back from the first episode, so I didn't even remember the Shoney's thing. But
well, the Shoney's is the restaurant that Rick kind of constructs for himself when he's in the dream with the Nathan Fillion agent.
Well, I got that. I'm just saying I didn't remember that callback to the first episode.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, and then of course Jacob, you saw the post credits for this episode, right?
Yeah, where Jaguar defeats Concerto.
Okay, Concerto. Oh God, I just gotta say this is just like the most brutal '60s Batman death trap I've ever seen, because that's totally what it is. It's a '60s Batman death trap. It's like they're all like. I'm sorry, you explain it, Jacob.
Well, let's see. Both Rick and Morty were tied to a giant piano that was crushing these various people, and even Rick that was terrifying even Rick.
This is it, Morty. Make peace to whatever god you pray to.
Just give that in mind. It was scaring even Rick.
Oh God, I don't want to die, Rick.
Yep. So as this very cheesy.
So cheesy.
Batman has been appropriately named Concerto.
I honestly hope we see an episode that leads up to this moment, because I'd love to see a full episode revolving around Concerto.
He's totally something. I said he's totally something out of a cheesy Batman cartoon. Like a cheesy '60s Batman. But suddenly, out of Dunley from behind comes Jaguar. To say that, and that, Morty, is why you don't need therapy.
Oh God, so good, so good. Okay, Jacob.
But near mind you, he still left them tied to the piano.
Yeah, I did notice that. Right. So let's go over a couple. There's some very interesting episode titles here. It looks like we're gonna get it straight through, to episode 10. So episode 4 next week is going to be Vindicators 3: The Return of One World Ender. And from what I understand, Jacob, this is supposed to be like kind of an Avengers parody. I don't really know anything else about it beyond that. Episode 5, however, I'm very... What?
Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, it looks like.
Episode 5, Jacob, I'm very excited about this episode just based on the glimpses we've gotten of it from the promo. is the Whirly Durly Conspiracy, which is a Rick and Jerry episode, and I love Rick and Jerry episodes.
Oh boy!
And this is Rick and Jerry at the crazy theme park. There's some footage of it in the season 3 trailer if you've seen that.
Draw.
Let's see. Episode 6 is Rest and Ricklaxation, which I have no idea what to think about that. Episode 7, though, is Tales from the Citadel, which of course means that the Citadel of Ricks is going to make an appearance. Who knows how that's going to go, given the events of the Shawshank Redemption. Then episode 8 is...
Isn't it Rickshank Redemption?
You're right. It's the Rickshank Redemption. That's not the first time I've gotten that wrong. I'm sorry.
Even though admittedly Shawshank Redemption makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. And then episode 8 is the ABCs of Beth, which more or less confirms that Beth is definitely going to get a bigger focus as the season goes on. So awesome. I'm kind of hoping that the ABCs of Beth is going to be like that long-awaited real flashback, like really pull some gravitas and emotional depth into the show. Okay, so Jacob, final thoughts on Pickle Rick?
I'm a pickle, Morty. Turn myself into a pickle because I can.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, go ahead, Jacob.
No, but seriously, this was a great episode. Like that, I would definitely say it's a step up from last week's episode for sure. But I mean, this episode, let's just say this episode has a lot more going for it. Far more creative in both of its plot points.
Now let's talk about one thing from last week, because we got a really insightful comment on it, where one of the things that I specifically was bagging on last week's episode for was just kind of being a direct parody of Mad Max. And this commenter, I apologize, I don't have his name pulled up right here, but he made a very good observation where it's not so much about the parody, it's more so about the escapism, and that's kind of the whole point of the episode, is the escapism. And I do think that's a very insightful comment. I appreciate it, and it kind of makes me appreciate the episode more. However, I just think between Rickshank Redemption and Pickle Rick, that episode just kind of, it's kind of just middle of the road compared to the other two. But Pickle Rick, oh my God. This thing is really rewatchable, I think, because once you get the shock value out of your system, it just becomes really fun, and just like the designs and the craziness and the inventiveness from Rick. Like this is like a whole episode of getting to see Rick's brain just on full display, how he goes about a situation. I love the guest stars, Susan Sarandon and Danny Trejo. They're both great. They both contribute a lot to the episode. Of course, I think the hype for the episode was big, and I definitely think it delivered. It's one of the best of the... I would wager to say this is probably one of the best of the series, maybe in the top 5 of the series.
It's definitely up there with its creativeness, that's for sure.
Yeah, just with the outlandishness, the pacing. I actually think this episode did have a lot of good character development, especially like with Beth and Rick, getting that whole relationship kind of ironed out. This episode just has a lot of really good things going for it.
What this episode proves that there's episodes of the show that have deep existential pathos and crazy sci-fi adventures, and also Rick can turn himself into a pickle and no one cares.
And this episode honestly has both. So, all right, so thank you guys so much for watching. I am stoked to be talking about Rick and Morty. This is such a fun show to podcast about. There's so many different crazy jokes and theories and Easter eggs packed into each episode. We're a little bit behind on stuff like Star Wars Forces of Evil. I apologize for that. We're going to try and carve out some time to just do one big podcast about the Battle of Muni event. But DuckTales is coming up soon. That comes up out in like a week, right? August 14th.
The 12th.
Oh, the 12th. Oh, we're even sooner. Yeah,
yeah, it's all day.
Yeah, so we'll be into that pretty soon. So can't wait for that. Okay, folks. Well, anyways, thank you so much for watching. And just remember, if you want a pickle, make sure it's a Pickle Rick! Since 2016.
Yes.
I turned myself into a pickle, Morty. What more do you want? I'm Pickle Rick.
Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that, Rick?
Because I can, Morty.